So let's talk about packages for just a little bit. I'm going to open up a random project I've already done. September 12 looks like a likely one. Where it says source packages, September 12 is a subdirectory under the SRC directory in your project. If you ever go poking around in your project to find your .java file, you'll see that there's a source directory, and then underneath that is your package directory. You can move your file, go back to it, out of that subdirectory directly into the source packages directory. You can just grab it and drop it, and then click refactor. Once you do that, there's no more package statement in it. That's what I like to see. You don't have to do it. The alternate way of doing it, let me open up another project. Is you can just delete that line, but then you're going to get an error. Won't build anymore. But Helpful NetBeans, whoops, will offer to fix it for you. Up there it says incorrect package. That's because it's in the wrong subdirectory. You just click that error and say move to correct folder, and it will do so. If you choose the second one, it just adds the package statement right back again. And maybe that's what you want, but there we go. So move to correct folder. Open up one of your previous projects, any of them. And then go over to the search, copy the entire thing. Matter of fact, just save it to the desktop. Save as, go to the desktop, give it a dumb name like test.java. No, better not change the name or else it won't compile. My mistake. So I'm going to save it and move it to the desktop. That doesn't change the project. I would close that. But then I'm going to close NetBeans entirely. And then launch TextEdit. TextEdit. Excuse me, TextPad. So go to search box and type TextPad. If you're following along at home, don't bother. You probably don't have TextPad installed. And then do open file, file open, and go and grab your file that you just copied to the desktop. It'll be in there somewhere. And there's our code. If the package statement was in there, it would not work. But it's not, so we can run it. Tools, external tools, compile Java. I hope your external tools menu is configured appropriately. And it says tool completed successfully. Now it's ready to run. External tools, run Java application, and then it runs. This is what the students in the other intro classes are doing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with teaching it in this fashion. Yes, sir. Sorry, just a sec. So this is a random aside, but if you get to the point where you can't see anything in the Dropbox, it's probably because you went to the next page and the next page and you reached a page where there was nothing and it won't let you back out of it. So close your browser window, go back into it, and what you want to do is the next time you actually do get it working, change it from displaying 20 or whatever it's showing to like 200. That way you get to see everything in one, as long as you don't mind scrolling up and down. I find that a lot more convenient. Alright, so that's enough about TextPad. You could even write programs in the editor that comes with Windows called Notepad, but you couldn't compile them and you couldn't run them. You'd have to go back to the command prompt and run the javac command in order to compile, and then you'd have to run the Java command in order to actually run it. And I would show you all how to do that, except we don't have those in the path. If I type javac, it doesn't do anything. Java does. Okay, cool. When we build something inside NetBeans, let's see what it's actually doing. We're not going to run it, but I'm going to go ahead and open one of my projects. One that I just messed with. How about that? I'm not sure if you can delete that library. Is there a way to do that? Right click on it and delete? Yeah, sure. Okay. So you could delete that subfolder, but do not delete your .java file if you do it that way once you remove the package. So once I build it, hammer and broom, and we look at the output window, here's what it's really doing. It produces approximately 8 kajillion lines of output. But it says creating directory, and it shows you a long path. I'm just going to copy that path. And then it says building jar. A jar file is a single file that can contain a whole bunch of different Java files in it. Kind of like an executable, except it requires Java installed on your machine in order to run. So if I go out to Windows Explorer and I paste that path to it, I'll see my jar file there. The jar file is the entire program, the entire project, squished together into one file after it has been built. And if I double click on it, it might run, might not. Doesn't seem to be. The way you execute it, and it even tells you how to run it. To run this application from the command line without ant, do java -jar. So if I open up the command prompt, the Windows key R followed by CMD is the fast way to open it, and then I'm going to CD into that directory. So I type CD and paste. Alrighty, and then I do dir and I see my jar file. I can type java space dash. I wish you could see it all in one line. Oh well. And followed by that file name exactly. Like that. And it'll run it right there in the command prompt. It's still running inside Java. There's a Java executable, java.exe. That's the virtual machine in which it runs. Virtual machine meaning it's like an emulator. If you're going to play Nintendo games on your PC, you have to install an emulator to do it. This emulator, except it's not emulating anything, it's providing the background for Java to run in, is installed on every machine that has Java installed on it. That's background information. String basics. A string is a series of characters. It can be no characters. It can be 1,000,000 characters long. A string is a series of characters. Each character can be referenced individually. So inside NetBeans, I'm going to make a new project finally. I'm going to call this one September 14. It's a clever name. I'm going to immediately, before I go any further, move the project out of its subdirectory into the source packages directory. Just tell it refactor. Or you can do the other trick and delete the line that says package and let NetBeans fix it for you. And one thing I'd like for y'all to do is this big thing up here that says to change this license header. That's completely unimportant. Just nuke that completely. And then when you put your comment block up at the top, you could just tack it onto this one that says add author. You know, September 14, learning about strings, whatever, you know. We don't have to do that for in-class assignments. But for your homework, you'll want to say, you know, homework 7, this program averages out daily rainfall, whatever the purpose of the program. We also don't need to know this. Param args, the command line arguments. For one thing, we don't use command line arguments. We could, remember this going to CMD, CD, into that, and then when I ran Java, jar, and then the file name and ran it, I could have passed in extra things. Java minus jar, file name, dot jar. I could have said extra things, like what directory I wanted it to run in or something. And then my main program would have parsed those command line arguments, got out that C:\\, and done something with it. But we don't do that. We have to leave that there, but we don't do that. So we're just removing the comment. Do we really need that comment? No, you can always get rid of that one. But I do want you to comment and add something for every variable you declare. Unless it's just a counter, unless it's incredibly obvious. Int I is equal to 0, while I is less than 10, print. You know, that's, you can see what I is. Otherwise, I want you to comment them. On the other hand, I know that it looks dumb if you do this. String first name. Don't type this. First name. That's dumb, right? If your variables are named like that, see if you can come up with a better comment than just saying first name, like employee first name or user first name or something like that. Okay, so a string. I guess we could have used name as our string. String name is equal to Bob Roberts. Every one of these is its own character. I could print out the whole string, system.out.println name. Or I could just print out one character. So I'm going to add a second print statement. System.out.println name dot, and I'm going to say the words char@, that's spelled C-H-A-R capital A-T, and I want to print out the first character, so I'm going to give it the number 0. I think I've made the comment before, computers count starting at 0. That means the first character, which is a B. It's going to print out a B when we run it. Hammer and broom, green arrow, and it prints out a B. Now, Bob Roberts is a long name. I don't want to print out all those things, so I'm going to shorten that to just Fred. String name is equal to Fred. I'm going to print out all the characters. How am I going to do that? I'm going to comment this out. Not comment it out, I'm sorry. Copy the entire line and then paste 3 copies of it. And I want to print out char@ 0, 1, 2, and 3. And it's going to print FRED, 1 per line. What happens if I go too far? It's going to blow up. And for you Python users who are used to using -1 to mean the last character, that doesn't work in this language. So if I tack on a print line, don't bother typing this because it's going to blow up. -1, it's going to give me an error. We see an exception. Exception, string index out of bounds, meaning that you can't access something at a -1 position in this language. So this has got a length of 4, right? So you can access elements 0, 1, 2, and 3. The way you say that is n-1. From 0 to n-1, where n is equal to the length of the string. If the string has a length of 1,000, you can go from 0 up to 999. What if we actually go too far? What if we go to 4? It looks reasonable that we can get to 4, right? I mean, it's got 4 characters in it. I ought to be able to print out the 4th one. Again, it blows up. String index out of bounds. And the reason it blows up is that's not really the 4th character, that's the 5th one, because this is 0-based indexing. Computers start counting at 0, 0, whoops, 0, 1, 2, 3. 4 is past the end of the string. So we can't print out 4. Error. We can only access characters 0 through n minus 1, where n is the length of the string. Well, how do I know the length of the string? The string has a method attached to it. Let's get the length of the string. Let's store it in a variable. Int len is equal to name dot length, parentheses, end parentheses, semicolon. And then let's print that out. System.out.println len. Then build it and run it, and you'll see that it's 4. So we could write a loop that would print all of these out. Right? Anytime you see a series of numbers like that, you go, oh, okay, I need a loop to handle that. What if the string was 180 characters long? Would we want to copy and paste 180 print statements? No, we would not. We would want to use a loop. So let's do that. We already have the length of the string right here, right? But let's just declare a counter, and I'm going to call it I. I am going to give this one a comment. Index position in string. And then while I is less than the length of the string, let's print it out. System.out.println. Let's print out the number plus a space plus the character at that position. So I, the number, plus double quote space in double quote plus name dot char at parentheses I. And then I plus plus, because we don't increment I, it's just going to print 0 over and over and over. Alright, so print it out Fred. 0F, 1R, 2E, and 3D. Sometimes you want to know where the position of a specific element is. There's another function. We've seen 2 functions so far. We've seen .char at, get the character at position or at index x. Sounds weird. And then we've seen .length. Return the length of the string. There's a few more that we want to tuck away into our brain. So char at returns the character at the given string at the specified position. I like saying index because that's what it's called when you're dealing with arrays. An array is just a list of values, just like a string is a list of characters. The positions of the characters within a string start with index 0. .length returns the length of it, so if we had high and then we printed s.length, it would print out 2. Another method is .equals. And here's what you cannot do. This will not work. Let's make a string. In fact, let's ask the user to type in something. So we're going to need a scanner. scanner sc is equal to new scanner system.in. I should scroll up now and add the import java.util.scanner. I'm going to be totally lazy and let NetBeans do this. As I always say, if you click on something and it says add import, that's okay. If you click on it and it says create, don't do that. So add import for java.util.scanner, good enough. All right, let's ask them to enter a name, system.out.println, enter first name. Then let's read that name in. Name is equal to sc.next. That just gets the next thing that they type. And now I'm really curious if they type in Donald. If name is equal to Donald, we're going to print a message. System.out.println. Pleased to meet you, Mr. President. Else, system.out.println. Who are you again? Do I need the braces in this case? No, because if there's only one line inside a pair of braces, after an if for a while, you can get rid of them. Is it better to leave them in? I would leave them in, except I like having a lot of text on the screen when y'all are following along with me. All right, now I'm going to run it. It says enter first name. I'm going to type Jim. Jim does not equal Donald, so I know what it's going to print, right? It's going to print who are you again. It says who are you again? It met my expectations. I'm going to run it again. Enter first name. Donald. Who are you again? I go, what? I'm comparing you right there. That worked in Python. You could do that. That worked in C++. You could do that. You can't do it in Java. And later on we'll get to why that doesn't work. But right now I'll just say that what equal equal does is just compare to see whether this string has the same address as another string. Very, very rarely do they have the same address. This will almost never, never, never work. Instead, we need to do something else. I'm going to comment that if out because it didn't work, and I'm going to replace it with something that does work. Then I'm going to do walkabout, make sure everybody's doing okay. If name.equals, parentheses, Donald, in parentheses, whatever, close all the parentheses you need to get it to work. Now it will work. Hammer and broom, green arrow, enter first name, Donald. Pleased to meet you, Mr. Prez. So it does work. And you have to do that every single time you do a string comparison. You ask the user if they wish to repeat. You can't just say if repeat equals equals, double quote, yes or y. You got to use name.equals. That'll become second nature. It's not that this is a weird, dumb language. It's just doing something that C++ and Python do not do, or vice versa. They support something that this language does not, which is what's known as overriding operators. And that term does not make any sense until you take C++. If you did before, great. Stop our recording. I'll move the recorder. Yay. I meant to remember that it's going to always be over there now. So we have learned a third method. Dot equals. I'm going to prefix all these with s, meaning string. S.char, s.length, s.equals. And so s.equals x compares or returns true if s equal x, like that. I'll paste these into the notes, of course. So the scanner. Well, that was sure skimpy on the string class and its methods. But the most important thing to know about it, I guess, at this point in time is how to compare it and maybe how to check like the first character of it. Why would you care about checking the first character? You could ask the user, do you wish to repeat Y in? And then if they type the whole word yes, it'd be nice if that worked too, right? So you could just check the first character. And then you know, if they type in either a Y or the word yes, you're golden. Java provides a pre-written class named Scanner, which allows you to get input from a user. To tell the compiler you want to use the Scanner class, you add this import. At the beginning of your main method, you have to initialize your scanner. The book uses stdin with a capital I. I use sc scanner because it's easy to type, right? Either one works. But if you're copying text from the book and you type in stdin, but then you've declared the scanner as sc like I did, you got to change one or the other. Then, if you want to read a line of text, you do stdin.nextLine. That returns a string, so you can't use that to input a number. You know, so if you do age is equal to standard.nextLine and age is an integer, that's not going to work. This reads in an entire line, which is great if you want them to enter your first and last name. Please enter your full name. You know, J. Jonah Jameson. If you didn't use next line, heck, let's give this a shot. We're going to wind up commenting some of this out at the end, but do this. System.out. No. We've already got a enter your first name up here. Let's just change that to enter name, like that. And after they type it in, we're going to print their name. System.out.println. So you see where I added this? I changed that to enter name rather than enter first name. So I changed that line. And now I'm changing this print line. I'm adding a new line here. System.out.println. Really? Stop that. Hello, comma, space, end quote, plus name, plus an exclamation mark, followed by a closing parentheses. And I have a syntax error, and I'm not spotting it, so I'm going to have to hover the cursor to see what it is. Oh, I have a comma here. Get rid of that comma. Inside your print line statements, everything should be separated by pluses, not commas as in Python. So it says enter name. I'm going to type in Donald Trump. And it says, scroll up to see, hello Donald. Well, that's great, but why didn't it print out my whole name? That's because sc.next pulled in only one so-called token. What a token is it's a piece of information, not the entire line. And the piece of information, the token, is everything up to either the character turn, the hitting of enter, or the first space. So since I typed in Donald Trump, the first token was Donald. And that's all .sc.next got. It skipped the rest. That could cause a problem. If we call another next or nextint or whatever, then the word Trump is sitting there waiting, trying to be read in, and then it's read in at the wrong place, and we were hoping for a number or something like that. Let's prove that. Let's prove that to ourselves. No, let's not. Just trust me on that. Let's go down here and add one more pair sys of prints and inputs. System.out.println. Who is your fave Avenger? And the name is equal to sc.next. parentheses, in parentheses, system.out.println. My fave is space quote plus the name plus another quote followed by a space followed by the word to exclamation mark. So it says, who is your favorite Avenger? I type in Thor and it says my fave is Thor too. Sometimes I marvel at designers who don't make it where you can expand the width of the application. It's like, really? Okay, well, whatever. So now I'm going to run it. If I only use one name when it says enter your name, everything's going to work great. Enter your name, Joe. Who is your favorite adventure? Thor. My fave is Thor too. So it's working. But now I'm going to enter two names. I'm not going to behave nearly as well. Enter your name, Donald Trump. Who is your favorite adventure? My fave is Trump too. It's like, hey, I didn't even get a chance to type my input. And that's what happened. Since we typed in Donald Trump, that was the first token waiting to be read with the .next command. And this was the second token, and it was already sitting there, hanging out, ready to be read in. So when we called sc.next, it didn't give us a chance to type it. It just sucked up whatever was hanging out there, which happened to be the word Trump, which is why it just said that my favorite Avenger is Trump. Hope that makes sense. So what happens if you really do want a whole line of data, something that has a space in it? We can fix that by changing that .next to .next line. Do that for both of them. Go up here and change name is equal to sc.next to sc.next line with a capital L. And then do that again on the bottom because we've got two .next commands. sc.next line. Now to work perfectly. Enter your name. George G. Washington III. Great, it says, hello, George G. Washington III. Who are you again? Who is your favorite adventure? Batman. Not quite, but there we go. And it says, my fave is Batman too. So that's the difference between .next and .next line. So the scanner has lots of methods. It's got .next, which reads in one token, reads the next token of data in input, or the next token of input, and a token can either be a number or it can be a word, like a name. .next line reads the entire line of input. .next int reads an int, integer as a token. .next double reads a double, and so on. There's a next float and a next long. Then it has some other methods that I'm not going to hit, but it's got methods in it to check to see what the data sitting there waiting to be read is. It's called has. If I did if sc dot, whoops, I need parentheses. Don't type this because I'm just going to comment on it, or if you want to, that's fine. If sc dot, why isn't that working? Don't I have my scanner yet? Oh, I'm too, I'm going to move my comments. I got to scroll down to the bottom to illustrate this. If, parentheses, sc dot has next double. That means that what you typed in is a double, and it's safe to go ahead and read it as a double. Then we could read it in. Double D is equal to sc.next double. Else, let's just read it in and yell at them for not typing a double. String S. Actually, I guess this is good stuff. You may as well type all this, even though I said not to. String S is equal to sc.next. All right, here's about where we're going to hit a big problem, though. And that's once you start using next line, you can't mix the other ones in without doing something special. So at this point, I think I'm going to just consider this program done because I don't want to show you the do something special in order to get it to work. Yeah, let's prove it. Let's see if it works. Who knows? Maybe I'm blowing this out of proportion. Maybe it'll work. Let's type in system.out.println above our has next double. What is your fave number? And if they type in a number, great. We read it in and we print out their favorite number. System.out.print. I'm sorry I'm jumping around. I'll slow down and let you type this in. Print line D plus quote is mine, comma 2, exclamation mark. And then underneath that string S is equal to next line. System.out.println S plus quote space is not a number. All right, so that's all of our code. Top line, system.out.println, what is your favorite number? Next line, if SC has next double. Next line, double D equals next double, because it has one. And then system.out.println D is mine too. Else, string S equals next line, and then system.out.println S is not a number. Might even work. I'm predicting that it's not going to. All right, enter name, Donnie. Who's your favorite adventure? Me. What's your favorite number? 37. Lo and behold, I believe it actually worked. Okay. You may get into trouble using next line if you're trying to use next line and mixing it with next int or next double. Seemed to work here. So for an awful lot of my examples, I'm going to assume that what the user is typing in is not 2 words or more. I'm going to assume that the data has no spaces in it, and I'm just going to use .next if I want a name. And so they'll type in their first name. That's just for the duration of the class, and eventually we will see how to clear the input so that you could use next line. One tactic you can use is just to use next line through the entire program and then convert what they type into a number. That weans you away from using next int and next double and things like that that you don't necessarily have in other programming languages. Those of y'all who took Python remember that we didn't have an input command that would return a number, right? It always returned a string, and then we had to call the int function or the float function to convert it. All right. So enter name, Don. Now I'm going to type in something that's bad. That doesn't work. Thor, what's your favorite number? I just don't know. And it says I just don't know is not a number. So that's kind of cool. That made it error-proof in a way. If we didn't have this if statement, if we kind of commented it out and we just called next double and then they typed in some garbage, the program would generate an exception. It would blow up. And you get all the red text. We made it a little bit more foolproof by doing it this way. And eventually I'm going to get to the point where I ask y'all to make your programs handle bad input by not crashing. What it should do is it should loop until they actually type in good data. Like if it says enter an integer, but then they type in 3.14, it should tell them that's not an integer and let them enter it again. Kind of like if you were using a web application that said enter a date and you typed in February 39th. It ought to tell you that that's invalid and go ahead and let you correct that rather than record that in a database and have it mess things up. So I'm going to go and tack that onto my comments. Next along with .next, .next line, next int, next double, dot has next. I'm not going to put parentheses after it because there's a whole bunch of them. There's next int, there's next double, there's next byte, next character, or whatever. You just fill it in with what you need. Checks the next token of input. I really don't use has next much because there are other ways of correcting for mistakes. Yes, sir?
Could you scroll up?
Sure. Where to?
Oh, to the last thing we were.
All right. Yeah, sorry about that. I did not leave that up long enough, and I know that I was willy-nilly editing it crazy. I'm just going to paste these into the notes instead and then go back to that. All right. Always vaguely amuses me that if I type my comments in the code, then I need to take all those out before I upload them. Fortunately, this time there's not very many of them, otherwise I wouldn't bother. Do I want you to use has next? Not really. Just kind of remember what it does, and if you ever see it again, then you know what it's doing. And if you see it in the code, you also know what it's doing. Just make sure that what they type is what you're expecting. And if it's not, just read the line of data, kick out an error message, and then make them do it again. That's one way of handling that situation. And we are done with. So what the scanner class does, remember when I said it reads in tokens? Tokens are everything that's non-white space. This line right here, if you ignore the bullet point, has 4 tokens that can be read in. It's got that one, and then there's white space. Got that one, more white space. That one, more white space. And then that one. So what is white space? White space are tabs, spaces, and then carriage returns. And you go carriage returns, that's white space? Yeah, it is. Run your program again, and then when it asks you for your name, wrong, go away. Don't give it any data, just hit enter. Enter your name. Rawr. Oh, since we used next line, it actually worked. My mistake. Never mind, forget that. If you use next line, it actually does go to the end. It doesn't treat the carriage return character as white space. Otherwise, it does. Okay, that was a failed example. My fault for using next lines as they mention them. So what is a token? It's a sequence of non-white space characters. Leading white space is all the white space before the name. We could prove that. No, we can't because we're using next line, so it's going to read in the entire thing. We can get it to work, though. Sorry, just figured it out. Who is your favorite adventurer? Thor. What's your favorite number? I'm going to type in a whole bunch of spaces and hit enter. Check it out. It's waiting for me to type in a number because all of that is white space. And now I type in 10, and it says 10 is mine too. That's an example of leading white space. All those carriage returns, all those tabs, all those spaces was treated, completely ignored, in search of the next token. And the next token was the number 10.0. So what happens if the user provides invalid input? It goes kablooey, blows up. Java machine prints an error message. More technically, it generates an exception. And an exception is something that kills the program unless there's an exception handler added to it. That's an example of the scanner class. We know how to print hello world. We are done with the chapter. All right, let's just hit chapter 4 and keep pressing on. could just stop here and have an exam next week. Let's not do that. Let's go ahead and include Chapter 4 in our first unit. But we need to pick a time for our exam, so why don't we do that? Let's look at the calendar. Let's assume that we're going to spend a week talking about Chapter 4, maybe another week, and let's make our exam Tuesday the 3rd of October. Let's make note of that. First exam, chapters 1 through 4, October the 2nd, which is a Tuesday, and I think I just got that wrong. Let me look again. Terrible memory. October the 3rd. All right. The origins of the names to me are kind of interesting. What is a Monday? This is what I think they are. Monday stands for Moon Day. Tuesday, I kind of forget. Wednesday would be Odin's Day. So the English got that from their favorite Norse invaders, I believe. Thursday, what does that look like? Thor's Day. Friday would be Frey or Freya's Day. They were a pair of god and goddess in Norse mythology's day. And then Saturday, I believe, is Saturn's Day. And Sunday is the day of the sun, right? Just like we have the day of the moon. Just kind of weird to me that they're all based on Norse terms, because we don't think of ourselves as being descended from Norse people. I mean, you know, the English language is not Scandinavian, but that's apparently where we got them all. I could be wrong on that. I've forgotten. I could Google it. Does that matter? No. Let's go back to where we were going. Delete all that stuff. So the exam is open book, open PowerPoint, open having NetBeans open, open any notes you've taken. Thought I dragged that over. Where'd it go? If I lose my PowerPoint, does that mean we don't have to look at it? There he is. Alrighty. Stop telling me move is successful. I know it was successful. As I always say, never use the little preview window for PowerPoints. It stinks. Alrighty, control statements. Now, this is going to be the world's fastest chapter because we've already used all of them. Not really. But we know what an if statement is. We know what a while loop is. So we're already ahead of the game here. So conditions. Throughout this chapter, you'll see if statements and loop statements like do and for and while statements where conditions appear. And the way the book shows it and the way the PowerPoint is between the parentheses, there's the less than sign, condition, greater than sign. Do you actually type that in your code? No. That's a insert stuff here indicator. That's like a fill in the blank. What does condition mean? It means something that evaluates to true or false. X equals 1. So if x equals 1, do something. Or while x is less than 10, do something. So that's what that condition means. Less than and greater than there don't mean anything. It's just a fill in the blank. So it involves some kind of comparison. Equals. Is something equal? Is something not equal? Is something less than, greater than? The comparisons use comparison operators. We've already talked about operators, right? We've talked about math and numbers, and I bet we've talked about PEMDAS, PEMDAS. I'm seeing nodded heads. Okay, good deal. Here are Java's comparison operators. Equals, not equals, and then the ones that compare values. Less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. And they all evaluate either to true or false. Again, these are binary operators, meaning that they work on two operands. Equal equals is the operator. The two operands are the 3 and the 3. 3 equals 3. Once the computer calculates that, it says that's true. 3 equal 4 evaluates to false. And we have to use 2 equals not 1 when inside of if statements and while statements. If we don't, then it'll give us a compilation error and it won't even run. Not equal does the opposite. So if we change this equal to, going to let me edit it, 3 not equal to 3 or 3 not equal to 4, then 3 not equal to 3. Is that true or false? That's false. Yeah, so is 3 not equal to 4? That is true. So it just reverses the truthiness of it. You could rewrite that to do the same thing if you did this. Not 3 equal to 3. Or not 3 equal to 4. More people use not equal though, rather than stick a rogue not out in front of it. You already know what less than and greater than and less equal to and greater than equal to. I'm not going to talk about those. So the if statement, we know what that does. Use an if statement if you need to ask a question. Well, we're not asking a question, we're making a decision on what to do next. We talked about the control, types of control flow. There was sequential, there was looping, and then there were decisions. It's a decision. 3 forms. If, all by itself, either do something or nothing. If else, do something or do something else. And then if else if. And we did a grade program, right? If x is greater than 90, print A. Else if x is greater than 80, print B. Else if x is greater than 70, print C. So you can chain a whole bunch of if, else ifs together. So we call that an if cascade. I'll show you why you could call it an if cascade. This isn't going to be properly formatted Java, but if grade greater than or equal to 90, print A. Else, and say that I had used braces because I was a stickler. Else, if grade is greater than or equal to 80, print B. Else, I bet you see where this is going. If grade is greater than or equal to 70, print C. And I'm not going to keep going. But you get the idea. I think a cascade is a series of waterfalls. Bump, 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 bump. It's an if cascade. If you write an if cascade, we have the else if structure, just like Python has elif. So just write it like that. Don't put every else in its own braces. If you have else and then bracket if, you're trying too hard. Just word it like that. When do you need the braces? If you're going to have more than one line. It's okay to say print B there, but if I also wanted to do print B, print, that's pretty good, that would not work. It would not compile. So if you have more than one line after an if statement or a while statement, you need to use the braces. Unlike Python, where you just indent everything and you're happy. So write a complete program that prompts the user to enter a sentence and then prints an error message if the last character is not a period. And we may as well do this. How are we going to check what the last character is? How do you check? How do you get a character out of a string? What method do we use? We showed it when we were printing the first letter of the string, and the second, and the third, and the fourth.
Char.
Yeah, char@. So we're going to need that. How do you get an entire sentence rather than just the first word from the scanner? What are we going to need to use there? So we don't use sc.next. We use sc.next line. That'll get the entire line. Otherwise, if they type in permanent good can never be the outcome of violence. I don't know if that's true. World War II, I would think that they had to do some violence. Anyways, if we just call .next permanent, would be the only thing in the sentence. So we know two of the tricks. The third one is, how are we going to get the last character? It's real easy to check the first character. We just use bracket 0. And you Python guys know how you check the last character. You use -1, but we don't have -1. So how are we going to get that last character? How are we going to calculate its position? Yeah, you use the length, and then you subtract 1 from it. Why? Because Fred was 4 characters, but we could only get up to 3, right? 0, 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to get the length of our sentence. I think this will be the last thing we do to our code here. So go back into NetBeans, and let's tack this on the beginning of our code rather than the end, so we don't have to keep answering all of those questions. You can put it wherever you want. No, let's put it at the end so we don't have to worry about whether we're at the scanner or not. And by the way, one of the first things I do, or if I ever remember, I don't always, is I go ahead and add some comments that the last brace is the end of the class, and the next to the last brace is the end of the method. In this case, it's the end of the main method. Why do I do that? So that if I say scroll to the bottom and add some code, I'm not going to stick it after the word that one, right? I need to stick it here. So let's get a statement. String statement. I don't want to use the whole word statement. How about just S? Hope I haven't used S already. String S is equal to sc.next line, but I've done something wrong. I need to tell them what to type in. So above that, system.out.println, type a sentence, please. So I said we needed to do 3 things. We needed to use next line, we need to get that character out, and we need to know the position of the character. So int last is equal to the length of the string, s.length -1. Why -1? Because it's 0-based indexing. If Fred's 4 characters long, we want to check index 3. Now we have the position. So if s.char at, remember the A is capitalized, at index position last is equal to a, now char at doesn't return a string, it returns a single character. And do you remember that strings have double quotes around them? What do characters have? I may not have emphasized that enough, but if, yeah, you put single quotes. Don't type this. But like if I did this and I wanted to put the letter A in it and I used double quotes around it, since it's a character, not a string, that would be an error because double quotes in this language means string. I would have to surround that. So when I compare it to a character, I'm going to have to put the period inside single quotes. That looks like some kind of emoticon or something, a surprised face. Then we're going to print a message. System.out.println ends in a period. Else, I guess we're just going to say system.out.println does not end in a period. I'm going to change the word period to a dot. Ew, and it blew up. I did something wrong. Exception. String index out of range. Okay, we're running into that situation I talked about where once you've used next line and you start mixing that with other things, it starts behaving weirdly. It didn't even let me type in a sentence before it boldly went on and did the next thing. And I'm not going to correct that. I'm just going to paste that into our notes, and if we had put this above our call to next double, it would actually have worked. But it didn't, so it didn't work. That's what happens when you put too many demonstrations in the same demo code. If it worked, great. But anyways, what did we do? We got a whole line of data there. Then we called, we could have put this code right after the get name and then just check to see if the name ended in a period. We got the length of it. We got the position of the last character, the index value of it. We checked with an if statement. We used char@, to get that last character, and we used equal equal to see if it was a dot, and if it was, we printed something else. All right, guys, let's say we're done. And as far as homework goes,